Hello. This video is going to look at drawing and specifically drawing curves in 2D. We'll go through some basic tools and different ways of sort of inputting and controlling the sort of drawing features. So we'll start with just looking at the tools themselves. So we have the tool palette, which is dynamic, and right now we've got some standard drawing tools available here for curves. There's additional curve tools that can be found here. We won't get into a lot of those during this sort of introductory piece, but we may return back later. So let's stay with the standard palette for now. So the thing to know about drawing is you want to build. You have basic shapes you can draw, but you're going to do a combination of adding and subtracting lines to get profiles that you want. So you have to think sort of in an additive and subtractive way, much like in Illustrator. You could potentially draw something sort of point by point, but typically what you end up doing is doing a combination of adding shapes and subtracting shapes to get the profiles that you want. So we'll start with some basics here. Okay, so if we select a drawing tool, so we've got the arrow tool here, which is for selecting shapes or objects. This is a single point tool. There's not much use to this right now, but it may become more useful later. Then we get into polyline, and if you click and hold, you can see it gives you multiple line options. So again, we'll stick with sort of the basics right now, and you can also see each of them has a different title. That's useful to know because I can either select it, and then you can see this dialog box changes, and now you can start to input information. And so you can either draw like this, and when you're happy with it, you hit return, and that closes that command. And if I click on it now, I can see it. Something else to be aware of is there's this piece called the gumball, which you can turn on and off. If you find it distracting every time you select something, you can leave it off until you want to start moving things. The gumball is basically a way to sort of move the object in space. And so you can move it via these different axes. So top view, it's left and right. Front view, you can move it up or down. You also have the option of rotating it by clicking on it here, and you can rotate the object. Okay. So, additionally, this is called polyline. You can also call a command up simply by typing it in the command menu, and that basically calls the tool up again. And also, if you want, you can actually type in locations. So here I'm putting the first point at 0, 0, 0. So that means it will be located right at this point right here. So if I click OK, or return rather, so now you can see the first point has been located at 0, 0, 0. If I want to continue doing that, and this is, sorry, let's try this again, polyline. So we go 0, 0, 0. Okay. Then if we want to do another line or another point, we can say X, Y. Well, then we can just draw. So let's see. 0, 10, 0. Okay, so you can input this almost like graph paper if you want to. Obviously, that's going to be kind of a difficult way to work. And then if you want to close a shape, you hover over the last point until you get that cue, click on it, and then that'll complete the shape. Okay. So with the arrow key, you can also select individual points. You can delete them if you want. You can select individual segments. If you see this dialog come up, it means that there's sort of multiple options within that clicking space, and then you decide what you want to click. If you want to click on the curve, the control point, or nothing. So I'll say the curve. Okay, so these are straight line tools. Then we have the curve tool, and so let's delete these. The other thing I want to do is set the dimensions again. So what you did in the first one, so I'll do it really quickly. Settings. Okay, make sure this is all still at inches. Good. Okay. So with the curve tool, there are a bunch of different ways of handling curve, including sketching. The handle curve is probably the one that will be most familiar to those of you who use Illustrator. So if we select that, it basically uses Bezier handles. So we'll select handle curve. Again, we'll locate the first point. I'm going to zoom in with the scroll wheel. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in with the scroll wheel. So you can see the first was a corner point, and then the second I clicked and dragged to create a Bezier handle. Click, drag, click, drag. If I just click, it's just okay. And you can always go back in afterwards. If I zoom in here, I can grab these handles. So that way I have a nice even Bezier handle curve. Okay, so edit with the arrow tool. You can move the points around. You can adjust the handles. The one difference between Illustrator and this is that unless you select the Bezier handles at the same time, so select the control point, and then also select the handles, and then move those together. That's the only way you're going to maintain that curve. Otherwise, it's going to become the Bezier handles. Control points will stay in the same spot. Okay, so that's the curve tool. You also have some basic sort of drawing tools. So here's a circle tool. And so, again, similar. If we set the position here, we can also, again, to be precise, we can go here to the radius and give it a radius of 2.5, which is 2.5 inches. Hit return. So now we have a circle that has a 2.5 inch radius, so it's a 5-inch wide circle. And again, you can move individual points, but you can see this geometry works differently. It's basically treating this as an arc. So it does not have Bezier handles. But this, again, could lead to some interesting geometry if you wanted to manipulate it. So the next tool I wanted to go over, so that's circle. You can see there's a whole bunch of different ways to draw circles. Each of them has different sort of benefits. Then there are ellipses. Same thing. Arcs and rectangles. So I'll select the rectangle. And if I want to be precise, so I've established the first point. Now I want to establish the length of this. So I'm going to set this to, say, 3. And then I can set height. Let's go back up here and set the height to 4. And then I just hit return. Okay, so now I have a rectangle. And I can rotate this back straight. Okay. So other things. So those are the basics of just drawing basic shapes. Not terribly interesting. That it gets interesting. I mean, certainly with the points and the Bezier tools, you could essentially start to draw something more complicated if you wanted to. So, but like I said before, what makes it more interesting is when you start manipulating it based on intersections. So I'd like to add these two shapes together. So I'm going to use a command called trim. And now it's asking me to select cutting objects. So what are the objects that I want to trim? Select those two. Then I hit return. And now it's asking me to select object to trim. So what am I going to remove? So I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to click OK. So now I've got an outline with the points, the 2 points where the circle and this jaggy line intersected. But you can see it's still only a single curve. So the next thing I need to do is join them. So I select open curve to join. So I select this, and you can see it closed out of that command, and now I only have this one line. So this is a single surface. Okay, so you can continue doing that. If I draw a rectangle through here, draw some jaggy lines. Draw an ellipse. Again, go to trim. Oops. Let's escape. Didn't quite get that right. Let's try it again. Trim. So cutting objects. So we're just going to keep selecting those. Then we hit return. Now we start trimming. So that, 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 this, and that. okay. We're happy with that. We select it again. Now we can go to join and basically just work our way through these shapes until they're all a single surface. And then click OK. Okay. So now you can see we have much more complexity. And it's a combination of adding and subtracting. But if we go back to our original view, next we can start to move into 3D forms. Okay.